All right, good afternoon, everyone. ¿Cómo están todos? ¿Bien? All right, so we have everybody here. And I just want to welcome to this year ILLCF Town Hall meeting. My name is Alba Mendiola of Telemundo Chicago, and I'm the moderator for this very important meeting. And for those who speak Spanish, I'm also la preguntona, okay? All right, so the most important, we're finishing this session, and many of the people that I've been the privilege to talk to today, they really want to know what is in the future, right? We already know what's been doing in these past 10 years. And I remember 10 years ago coming to the first event that they organized, and it was not as many people as we see now. I see a lot of participation, a lot of people now. And what makes me very happy is, like, for example, in the company I work, Telemundo Chicago, we did this campaign. It was called Vota por tu Futuro, and we started last year with a special show called Enfoque Chicago. And that was our focus. We wanted to bring the awareness of the importance of the vote in Chicago and the state of Illinois. And I think we feel very, very glad to see the numbers after the election, that a lot of people, a lot of Hispanics now are participating. We see new generations. You know, people like me, I come from Mexico. I did news in Mexico, and then I came here as an immigrant. But there's so many young Hispanics now that they're considering participating in the process for this country. I think that's the greatest thing. But I just want to go because we don't have much time. We only have 1 hour. But this town hall meeting has been an important conclusion to the ILLCF conference program. The presenters, panelists, and speakers earlier today have described how the impressive growth of the number of Latinos in Illinois has impacted economic, educational, immigration, healthcare, social, and human services policies and institutions. Progress has been made, but there is still much to be done. The town hall meeting is an important part of the establishment of an agenda that your representatives are developing for the next decade. We have two objectives here in this town hall meeting. First, each legislator will briefly explain his or her specific legislative focus has been and what the agenda is likely to look like in the next years. And I already collected many of your questions that were written, and we have even more. So hopefully we can go over all of this in the very short period of time that we have, but we'll try to do that. So first, each legislator will briefly explain, like I said, this focus on their own agenda and their district. And second, like I said, we're going to have these questions that I already collected. Our participants today are State Representative Maria Tony Berrios, co-chair of the ILLCF. Big applause for her. Also, State Senator Antonio Munoz, co-chair of the ILLCF. We also have here with us State Representative Dina Carly, State Representative Linda Chapalavia, State, oh, she's not here, I'm sorry, well, it's good. No, he's not, I'm sorry, I didn't check the names, but State Senator William Delgado, State Representative Elizabeth Hernandez, and I know her because I interviewed her earlier. State Senator Iris Martinez, Iris. And State Representative Cynthia Soto. And I think we have more than enough to ask them, all those questions that we have. But starting with, we would like to start with Representative Berrios. Will you please, each of you, indicate the Illinois district and community that you represent, and then briefly discuss the issue you have emphasized during your time in this state?
No. Oh, now I am. Yay. So I'm Tony Berrios. I am state representative of the 39th District, which is roughly Logan Square, Belmont, Cragen, Avondale, Hermosa, and further into Portage Park and Old Irving Park now. So the district definitely expanded. It's very exciting to have all of you in here. If you have more friends that wanted to stay for this part, definitely text them, tell them to get back in here. Or just continue to tweet because it's super cool to see all the different tweets on ILLCF 2012. Gotta plug it, right? So one of my favorite bills, I've been a legislator 10 years now, going into my 6th term, but one of my favorite bills that I worked on was actually making sure that our students get fed during the summer. Children are on free and reduced lunch during the school year, but during the summer months, they could go hungry because they're not in school and their parents are at work. So we were able to pass some legislation a few years ago that says children had to, if the school was open, they could go back to school to get a lunch at least, even if they're not part of the summer school program. But another thing that the foundation worked on, and we meant it for this session, there is a pamphlet in all of your programs that you got when you came in. It is our 2nd publication. So a few years ago, we did the blueprint on Latinos in Illinois, and now we have Fuerza Latina, a paradox of success and hardship. We actually commissioned the Latino Policy Forum to help us out with this, and we touched on a few issues that were important to our community, like economic well-being, education, health and human services, and housing. So please take a look at this so you can see where the Latino community was 10 years ago and where we are at today and where we hope to be in the future. Thank you.
That's great. Well, now, Senator Munoz, please.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Senator Munoz from the 1st District. I picked up in the new remap on the east end of my district, Chinatown. I have Bridgeport, Brighton Park, McKinley, a little bit of back of the yards. So I'm very fortunate to have that great district. I was very fortunate enough over the years since I've been in, I've introduced 298 pieces of legislation. Thank you. Out of the 298, 142 have passed both chambers, the Senate and the House, signed by sitting governors. I am currently on my 3rd governor, my 2nd president of the Senate, some great colleagues, worked on a number of bills for undocumented immigrants, one being the in-state tuition bill that puts them on an even playing field. They currently live in the state. They should be able to pay the same as everyone else. So we are very fortunate in getting that done. I will not keep you talking too long so my other colleagues can talk about their bills as well. I will only tell you this. I've been very fortunate. It's been great working with my colleagues here in the Latino Caucus, as well as working with local elected officials to try to get things done for my community, to do what's right for the state and the city of Chicago. Thank you.
Now we're going to the next representative, Representative Cynthia Soto. No, oh, I'm sorry, Dina. Dina's here. I'm sorry. I don't.
He's a hard act to follow, so if Cynthia wants to go, she can go. Good afternoon. Thank you for coming out today. I'm glad you were able to share the day with us. I'm honored to be here. I'm, again, Representative Dina. I represent the communities of Brighton Park, McKinley, Little Village, and Gage Park. This is my 1st term as a state representative, and it has been an unbelievable experience. I have had the opportunity to join my colleagues in the fight for the Latino community. However, in January, my term will be over, and I'll return to reality of being a Chicago police officer. So that's what I'll do in January. I'll go back to doing that, but I do want to do a little plug for them. The police department has the hiring has begun, and the Latinos are coming in and they're applying and they're getting hired, but we need to keep that up. We're supposed to be hiring a few more, so I encourage you all to go out there and hire Being a law enforcement officer has always been a dream of mine, and I think it's one of the hardest and most rewarding jobs out there, so I encourage you to take that avenue if that's what interests you. Some legislation, my law enforcement background has helped me with legislation that I have done out in Springfield. I'm happy to say I did some legislation to help officers who needed to seek mental treatment in institutions. And what was happening before is they would not seek treatment because they were afraid that their FOID card would be revoked and they would no longer get paid. They can seek treatment knowing that their job will still be there and they can have the support of the department to seek the help they need in hopes to prevent suicides down the line for law enforcement officers. So I'm very proud of that. My experience, again, has been great. I am honored to work with each and every one of my colleagues. I know, and I want to thank you for your endless support. Thank you.
Senator William Delgado.
Thank you, and good afternoon. Wow, it's been a long day, a wonderful day. I'm William Delgado from the 2nd Legislative District, Humboldt Park. I've been there, thank you. I inherited a seat from a great man and mentor, Miguel del Valle, whose name should always be mentioned in anyone and everyone's career up here, just about. And it's a great man who is here today and continues to build and work on the issues. 2nd Legislative District, I'm the current chair of the Public Health Committee, Vice Chairman of Executive Appointments. I share with my colleague, Senator Tony Munoz, who's the Chair of Executive Appointments, and sit on Human Services. Everyone knows me for my background in public health. Since 2002 was very big for me, as I was able to work with the Campaign for Better Health, the lead sponsor in the House of Representatives to House Bill 2268, together with a man who was then State Senator Barack Obama, who carried it in the Senate Care Act, and now today in the United States of America, we'll see this celebrated throughout the nation starting in 2014. And in Illinois in 2002, we were able to get remnants like kid care and mammograms, the only state in the nation that's able for women to the uninsured to have an x-ray and services if need be, even though they were not insured. Same with families. If mom and dad were insured, kids could be insured. I'm also very proud of the fact that I was one of the lead sponsors. I'm not concerned about the immigrants who are coming, trying to work in that country. We are seriously looking for those sex offenders and others that from any country we would not want to have in this nation. But I was very proud to have worked on that and seeing my colleague Eddie Acevedo actually get it passed in the House at that time. I was very proud to be able to be part of the abolishment of the death penalty and be one of the main sponsors in making sure that the death penalty, because one person's death is too many people's death by error. And although my background is in criminal justice, I actually have a strong view on matters that are progressive and that should not just be out there to punish as citizens, especially in the area of abolishment of the death penalty. And last but not least, we're working on the Mental Health Parity Act, which will now also be for employers and those folks who, mothers who are returning maybe from a cancer and needed OxyContin, and the boss says you've been out of work too long. Well, now they'll have to offer you benefits. For that dad who's driving a forklift or just maybe have to take an anxiety drug and they think you can't work or perform on your duty, they will have to offer you insurance. So we're the first state to do this, the Mental Health Parity Act, and actually we were going to present it this weekend in D.C., but this conference was more important to me, and so we're very excited about that, so look out for that. And obviously a litany of other things we've done, and I'm very proud to have served in both chambers as a member of the Latino Caucus, the only Latino to serve in both chambers, and we have a lot more work to do. God bless you, and thank you for being here, and it's just been wonderful. So it's a lot of work, but with your support, we get it done.
State Representative Elizabeth Hernandez.
Thank you, Alva. Thank you. So good afternoon, and thank you for staying for this part of the section of the conference. I think it's really important to really express what some of the accomplishments right from your legislators and to really get it firsthand with some of these questions, and hopefully we got some answers. So I'm a state representative of the 24th District, which covers Cicero and Berwyn. But due to remapping, I go now into the city. So I'm not suburban, but I'm now suburban and city. I go into Chicago, and I go as far as Brookfield. So from 2 municipalities, it's become 6. My background, actually, I come from an educational setting. I worked for the school district in Cicero for 17 years, not as a teacher, but rather as a support staff in the administration building. I was one who actually, the first people that would come into, that is the public, when the public would come into the administration building, I would be the first one they would be meeting. And so there is really where the connection came from the educational setting to then afterwards, because of my political activity, work with the governor for 4 years before I went into office. I sit on, and which has been obviously very important to me because of my education setting, is I do sit on the appropriation, educational, elementary, secondary committee. One of my major roles there has been keeping early childhood funding intact. Last session it was very difficult, but I think that we're going to keep working and moving on, as you know that early childhood affects our communities tremendously. But I can't leave without saying that although I'm not the chief sponsor, was a co-chief sponsor, Representative Acevedo was the one who led the DREAM Act legislation, and I played a real active role in doing the legwork to assuring the passage of the DREAM Act. So that is a tremendous accomplishment, and not, you know, for the community, and I think overall for everyone, because when we have students that have the opportunity to pursue their education, it benefits all. So I think that is the heavy duty. I mean, that was one of my biggest experiences, and I think the most important so far, that all of them are important, but that has really come close to home and to the heart. Thank you.
All right, State Senator Iris Martinez.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. And I really want to thank everyone who has stuck around to hear us and to ask questions of us, because I think as legislators, that's what we need to always make sure we are open to, is questions and try to provide the answers. I want to, congratulate again our 2 co-chairmen, Tony and Tony, who did a great job. TNT, who did a great, the TNT, right? So have done a great job, and keeping this going. It's been 10 wonderful years. And we're going to continue to grow. As the Latino Caucus continues to grow, I think that this year there are too many folks that the Latino Caucus is a caucus to reckon with. We have a lot, as you can see, many of us have different priorities, and not because it's that's what we want. It's the fact that each one of us want to make sure we cover everything that's going on, from public health to safety, to consumer, to our young folks in colleges and high schools like Tony does, to Elizabeth here, who does a lot of stuff when it comes to early childhood, to my amiga over here who deals a lot with the education. It's kind of hard when you want to talk about one specific bill. For me, it's hard because every year I might introduce 20 and 30 bills. I might end up with 10 or 15, and I gotta say that I can't even keep a count. Tony gave a count of his years. I only know that I've only had 2 bills vetoed. Bad mistake, bad mistake by the governor, but that's okay. But I think more important, I think we all, the co-sponsor of the charity care bill, which means that hospitals have to provide charity care to everyone in the community, especially to the immigrant community and to the Latinos. I think that, again, those are kind of bills that really matter, to us, especially that affect our community. To me, any bill that can change the quality of life of our residents, no matter where we live, I think that is something that what we are about. I think this caucus is an awesome caucus. We do so much work, not only here in Illinois, but sometimes other states are asking for our opinion, for our expertise on the things that we're doing in Illinois, so we should be proud. And I think that as we continue to elect more folks who not necessarily have to be Latinos, but who represent Latino communities, it's important that this caucus continues to grow, but more important is that when budget time comes around, that we get a much bigger piece of the pie, and that we have to continue to fight for that. So I'm very proud to be part of this caucus, very proud of the work that we all have done individually, but more importantly, collectively as a caucus, on making sure that we put pressure on the administration, pressure in the departments to make sure that the right thing is happening when it comes to Hispanic hiring, making sure that, you know, the right thing is done, because we want our fair share, but it's time, I think that now, more than ever, this election proved that we have a whole lot more to ask of, because you know what? We are a force to be reckoned with. Thank you.
State Representative Cynthia Soto.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you again for your participation in this conference and your continued support. I want to also thank our two Tonys, our TNT, for the great work that you've been doing all these years. So I applaud you, and I think that we should all applaud them again, because they deserve it and even more. I also want to recognize each and every one of our legislators that we work with in the legislature on both sides, in the Senate and in the House. Yes, we do tremendous work. It's a lot of work, but let me tell you, we do it, and we do it from our heart. There's times where we're crying because a piece of legislation didn't pass, and it's so important, and we know, we feel it. And sometimes you don't see that part of us. But, you know, you ask about favorite bills. Yes, you know, all bills are personal to us, so we do have a lot of favorite bills. You know, in my 7th term, I just got reelected to the 7th term, so it's a blessing. Thank you, Lord. And it is a blessing. It is truly a blessing. So, yes, there's been a lot of bills that I've introduced since I joined the General Assembly. But prior to the General Assembly, I worked for the Cook County State's Attorney's Office 18 years in child support enforcement. If you're not paying child support, I will find you.
Cynthia will get you.
So I introduced a lot of legislation that I'm very proud of to improve child support collection. So if you ever Google me, you'll see a lot of those bills that, you know, and now I just have to say we've won monetary awards for being one of the highest states that collects child support. I also am proud of a teacher forgiveness bill that I introduced in the beginning of you know, my tenure here with in the legislature. Supported immigration bills. So of course we have a lot of different bills that, again, that we've introduced that are personal. So I think every bill that we introduce is a great bill. But I just want to say it's been a pleasure working in the legislature and working with all our colleagues and working with you and seeing your faces here, because you're a lot of the familiar faces that we see every year, and it's important to us that we're working together and doing the same things that we all care about. What we do and care about, you know, you're here for that reason, because you like what you're hearing here in these conferences. So I encourage you to continue our partnership, our collaboration, and we will commit that, and I'm sure that my colleagues feel the same way, and we commit to you that we'll give it all we have to make sure that we have parity when it comes to every area that pertains to Latinos. So again, thank you for everything you do, everyone in this room. Thank you. And a shout out really quick to Ron Perlman, you're the best. Awesome. And everyone that worked on this conference.
And I forgot to mention that earlier, but I'm going to say now, and we are streaming live on YouTube for our colleagues from CAN TV. So people can watch it at channel 27, or you can also find this information, everything that is here, at cantv.org. And we have to support public television. I think this is the greatest thing. Yes. We learn a lot about them. All right, well, you know, everybody says they're Latinos. I really enjoy the speaker earlier to say that we are very broad of colors and cultures in the Latino community. And I just see as myself, I came from Mexico, and I'm considered, of course, I know, an immigrant. And learning politics here in Mexico, of course, is some differences. But at the same time, I noticed doing my work in television is that maybe many people don't understand how politics work here. And when I did stories, for example, how to explain people how the redistricting work. And one of the questions that I see here, many people want to know, because of the redistricting, right? After all of that, we see Latinos moving downstate. We see more Latinos going that route now in the suburbs and other places. So how is the Latino Caucus reaching those areas to make sure that there is representation, not just for their needs, but also a voice that they can trust in those areas?
I think that's an excellent question. First of all, I would point out that all of us are asked by the farm bureaus and talk about a way to go out and visit. If you're not touring the prisons, as we've all done, every prison institution, and I see a former warden shaking his head up and down here. But I belong to the Gallatin-Saline County Farm Bureau, and every member of the Latino Caucus, actually General Assembly member, a Farm Bureau will come up to you, member, and ask you if you will be an honorary member to their Farm Bureau. So we exchange ideas from the north to the south. Now, Latinos, of course, by history, we're agrarian people. It'll be from Mexico, Puerto Rico, Colombia. Our relatives, someone was agrarian in our family. I used to kid around, my dad drop a nail into the soil, a hand would grow. My father was so agrarian. And so we get to go down like Saline County, and that's Senator Gary Forby. And so there's 600 people there. We get to learn as the chair of public health the need to find out that there's only one clinic there. We complain in our community cordon, which is Vicodin ODs walking in, young people with nothing to do, farmers that are having farms fall off from underneath them because oil companies are taking out their minerals from underneath our Illinois farms, which is so rich, and yet you see what they call waterboarding and their farms falling to bits and pieces. Seeing how some of them, the homes are streets, and in Harrisburg, how the schools can be compared, if not worse, than some of our Chicago public schools. We see that Latinos are moving into those areas, finding the jobs in the racetracks, finding the jobs in the schools, in the hotels that are in that community. Their sons and daughters are going to Carbondale. They're going down to all the universities that the train, Amtrak goes right by Champaign. So, yes, we're hearing Spanish stations come up in every part of southern Illinois. We're central Illinois when we're at Capital Springfield. When you go all the way southern Illinois down to the tip of Kentucky, yes, we are hearing La Idioma Español spoken through them all, but many families who are just now struggling getting on their feet and being stepped on by some of their employers and jobs because they're newbies down there. And so our work is being called. And I'll leave you with this one. A student whose mother and father is a doctor, and they were transferred from New York, but the student had a beautiful, like, you know, Latina color, nice cinnamon color, and maybe her hair didn't blow in the wind every day, you know, because it was a little thicker than the regular student. And that student was bullied, and that was in a school district that Governor Edgar comes from. And having to deal with the bullying of a straight-A student who I understand now is at Yale, and being able to find peace and understanding among them at Eastern Illinois University. So we're able to build bridges and to be able to make sure that these things don't occur again by holding dialogue and being able to find peace, because we explain to families and they realize they're only there working. So yes, they are everywhere, and I'm sure others have stories they can share too. But mine have come through being a member of the Farm Bureau and touring the health care centers, the mental health care centers, and at prisons where many of our loved ones are there, and moms and dads need access to them as they age. And my district is one of the highest transfer points in the state, as many of you know. And we go downstate and not necessarily to play basketball. We have loved ones incarcerated in many of the areas at the same time in the university studying. So we're everywhere, and in 102 counties. It's so pretty to see a little bit of cinnamon in the oatmeal. It's
We have
poquito canela en la avena.
We have many, many questions, and I know this one is in a lot of people in this room, a lot of people's mind, because I've been reporting this for the past 2 weeks, so everybody knows what it is. So what is the caucus plan for passing the driver's license bill for undocumented Illinois residents? And specifically, I will say, now there is the veto session coming. What are the specific steps that are going to be taken to make sure that passes?
Okay, so I think we have been doing this. There has been a strategy in place already. And we are working with the advocates. So it has started. This week, actually, it was kicked off. It was announced that we are going to come before the legislature to introduce the piece of legislation to pass driver's license for all, that it hasn't been without already much discussion that has occurred between our leadership, that we're both in the Senate and in the House, and really planning out how would be the best way to try to pass the legislation. We do have leadership on the Senate end that is leading the bill, and that is President Cullerton. On the House end, our Representative Acevedo is leading the driver's license on the House end. However, what we are looking to do is start speaking with our colleagues, our members, and working on a roll call to best meet that number for the passage of the driver's license. We all know right now that, and we can't ignore, I'm going to be very upfront with you. Look, it's the make of the legislature is going to change. There are many who are exiting out, and we have to take advantage of that. I think the fact that the Hispanic vote in this presidential election came out sends a message that it's time. I think that really puts it clearly that this is the direction that we are taking, and I think that pretty much states where the possibilities are with this bill.
Senator Iris Martinez.
Thank you very much. And with someone that's been working with John Cullerton, President Cullerton, meeting with staff about the language that's going to be used and how to make it happen with our colleagues over in the Senate. President Cullerton has been talking to leadership. We are not, reinventing the wheel. We're going to take existing a driver's license, a temporary license that right now is issued by the Secretary of State to people that are temporary working in the state of Illinois. We're going to take that kind of input from the Secretary of State office. And you know what? I think that Lisa said it very best. When you look at what's happened in the election, this last election, people need to get on board real quickly because the train is leaving, and I think it's very apparent that this piece of legislation is not about an immigration issue. It's not about, the status. It's about public safety. It's about who is driving on the streets of Illinois, and have they taken the rule of the road test? Do they have insurance? It's a matter of public safety, road public safety, and knowing that the sheriffs are on board now with the version, because we've been meeting after meeting, and I think the sheriffs are finally feeling much more comfortable with the fact that a temporary license can be the license going to be used for this piece of legislation that right now is approved by the Secretary of State. I think we're going to be able to work with our colleagues on both sides of the aisle in both chambers, because I think that this is something that it's about public safety, it's about highway safety, and if people truly care about safety on our roads, there should be yes votes from everyone, regardless of what side of the aisle you are on. So we are really going to work this bill the best way we can.
To be a little bit more specific on the timing for this driver's license, when is the best time to introduce it? Now during the lame duck session or after the new legislative
It's going to be introduced. The language has been is being prepared right now as we speak, and next week because it has to follow a process of being introduced, and you have to go through a process of making sure that it's read into the record 3 different times, and it's got to be heard in committee. I got to tell you, I got to give it to President Cullerton. He's been reaching out to everyone. Just today, Senator Kurt Dillard said that President Cullerton sat down with him just last week. He's been meeting with folks about the bill. So, I think that we will have this, and the best time for us to pass it is right now during veto session.
Yeah. And let me add, so leadership is very important, and on the House end, we have sat down with the Speaker of the House and also has placed his support. So do you see that with the talks have begun, we have met with the leadership, so we're really strategizing to come to the point of veto. So the preparations are in play, and we're optimistic.
All right. Well, we have many, many topics, but this is a good one. Did the Latino Caucus support the constitutional amendment for pension reform? If so, why?
Actually, we didn't take a position on that. As a caucus, individual members just chose what they wanted to do individually.
Right. My position on pensions is that promises made, promises keep. Any diminishing, altering, or changing of any rule in the pension is unconstitutional. So instead, they want to attack our health benefits and make us pay into it and say, well, wait a minute. If you want your COLA raised after you retire, you can have that, but you will have to pay more into your health care. Well, isn't that a change or a diminish? Anything that, I mean, I know 1 and 1 is 2. I mean, is that basic? So for us stalwarts who were trying to stay with the tradition of America and of Illinois, and now that Illinois and America looks more like us, they are changing the ball game, and the memo has changed in the rules. Now that many of them are millionaires and do not need their pensions, the one who filed the legislation to add to senior deductions to their health care is a multimillionaire who is taking a millionaire taking a job with the Pritzker Foundation once he left his Senate seat. And I asked him, would he leave his health care behind? Because my wife and I, we work for a living. We need our health care. This is all I do. And I think everyone knows my wife, Iris, at the AG's office. We work this as a full-time job. So when you're making, you know, we all make pretty much a lot of you make more than we do up here, at least more than me. And so at the end of the day, I believe strongly that these games are being played because let me just say this. You know, property and slavery were created by man. It was man-made. And that was a Nelson Mandela statement, actually. And it can be undone by man. This pension mess was created by the legislature, not by you missing your payments, not by you doing anything. But now we're in America, and I believe we should find a ways. Now, we may have to pay the health care costs, but heck, we fought for new health care rules. I participated in that. We're trying to change health care to make it more affordable. But at the end of the day, those who needed it back in the 70s are now paying as they go. But it's legislatures that now look like us. So right now, my position is with labor 100%, just like it was with the Chicago Teachers Union, and it will continue to be so. Now, the pressures will have to come from the labor unions, and I will vote the way they want. But I strongly believe we have a legal case, and outside, we know that the Constitution says you can mess with their health benefits. The reason why that they can't mess with the monetary benefits is because the U.S. Constitution provided that in any kind of war or given economic disparity in a country, that would be constitutionally protected because we knew governments would have to be parasitic and go after those benefits. But that would be a shame and a crime, and I believe that we have to fight for what we earned, and we're willing to talk about at least the health care portion. But our Democrats, as long as we're in office, we should not be offering these sacrifices. Let the Republicans do it because they're going to do it anyway once they get into office. Right, who agrees and doesn't agree, I guess they're asking.
All right.
I'm with Willie. I'm coming from a labor background. I'm with them.
Yep. Somebody disagree?
I'm with Willie and Lisa.
Disagree.
Right now, you have to understand, there's been 3 or 4 different drafts of this bill. It's not fair to say who are you with or until you see legislation that's going to come before us. That's going to, wait, listen to me. I'm not saying I wouldn't vote for it. I'm just telling you the 3 different bills that were out there. And guess what? At the end of the day, none of them went anywhere. The one that we did vote for, the first one was to go after our pension, to take away health care for the rest of our lives. So before we started with anyone's pension, we did our own. Now that bill passed the Senate, and I voted to take away my health care. Because I'm figuring if I'm going to have to take a vote, a hard vote, someday, right now, leaders The leadership needs to have all labor come and sit to the table. You can't be blaming legislators for legislation that's not even put to the table yet. So that's not fair enough to say, well, what are you going to do? And what are you going to do? Let's get the legislation and let's move forward. I can honestly tell you this. I was a Chicago cop before I became a senator. So I belong to a union as well.
Okay,
So
we're
can we
gonna
go to the
move.
next question?
Okay. Well,
I just told you. Nobody voted yet. I told you the
All
one
right.
legislation that
Right.
came out, and that came out of the Senate.
all right.
Undecided?
We haven't seen the
We haven't seen the
legislation come
language.
before
It
us.
keeps changing. It keeps changing.
And we have nothing to do with it yet because we weren't part of the process. We knew there was going to be a pension bill, but we didn't see it in the beginning. We didn't see it till we were introduced it. They wanted to introduce the bill.
And the
votes
House
weren't
didn't even
there.
take
The
it up.
votes- Nope, the votes weren't there, and they don't have the votes for the bill.
All right, we have many, many other topics, but thank you for answering. We have now, in terms of bilingual education, there is a good question here. How do you plan on supporting the rights of English learners as far as promoting year-round bilingual programs and supporting parents who do not speak English?
Let me just quickly say this, and you know, again, the power that we have as far as its appropriations, you know, there is many negotiations that take place during the appropriations time, which is almost at the end when the budget has to be voted on. And I think that this position that the caucus has always taken is if there are cuts to bilingual education, if there are cuts to any kind of education, many of us will not be part of that. And I think that we've been keep bilingual education dollars there, and if we've seen any reduction, we've always rallied together and have said we will not accept a budget where there is cuts to bilingual education. I think that Senator Delgado, Senator Munoz, myself have always watched this budget when it comes to any program, any dollars being taken away from any programs that support the Latinos. We are always a no, and until you know they either restore it or give us more or whatever the case may be, I think we continue to make sure that funding is always available, especially when it comes to bilingual education.
Please, I would just say that if you're going to look at bilingual education now under today's setting, they're not the same schools that they apply to. And as long as Chicago continues an elite mentality of creating charter schools for the cream of the crop and does not have alternative schools for those most needed to go to, being it through behavior disorders, be it because they're maybe a little truant, you know, and maybe because they just, you know, they have unenforced. I'm a former DCFS guy, and, you know, they come home to school with a lot of unenforced habits from home. And so if we're looking at the new, we're cutting this weed now from the top, because before we were talking about bilingual education under the Chicago public school system. But as they continue to disinvest in our Chicago public schools, you must intelligently assume that they're disinvesting in bilingual education, because if they were to give the amount of monies necessary, those schools don't exist. They're going to in a, what they call a Chicago facility task force and trying to try to figure out why CPS is just coming into communities and closing schools. We not only need bilingual education to work, we need it to be dual language. We need the parents to participate. But what will they be in? Will they be in charter schools? Charter schools can barely handle the needs of the disabled, let alone to create a bilingual track that I've seen that really works. So at this time and day, I'm kind of confused still, because now the meat of it is not fitting into the shoe it's supposed to be in, because they're taking away what we know as public education. So we may not have to fight for that too longer, because you're going to now have a bunch of charters, and without teacher certification and organization, they'll be able to call it whatever they want. And generations in my family will, over my dead body, will always know their culture and their language. Like I did, being born in Newark, New Jersey. A mí jamás me va a quitar esta mancha de coquí. So we have to make sure that we have schools that teach bilingual education and to give them choices, but not all elite charters. I like charters, but let's have some pathways to alternative education for those students who are truly the bulk. And then we would see crime go down on Humboldt Park and Little Village and the South Side. And then we will see students who would truly embrace education again because they were not being given the necessary attention and they were just bored, but yet they're very intelligent and someday can become a senator like all of us up here.
I have many questions. Most of the questions I have here are on education, but this one really like put all together. Many schools are overpopulated. After redistricting, are the school districts changing, and how to make sure that in those districts the Latino communities are
schools and find or create, like in LA, a Soledad program where the parents created their own school system. So we have to find out exactly what the blueprint is of the Chicago public schools going forward, and maybe we would see, we'll understand it better if we knew who those members were, as many of them sit on Lakeshore Drive. But I would think an elected school board would be more sensitive to that, and Latinos need to make that decision along with all the other whites and African Americans that live in that city.
Representative Soto?
Yes, yes. Myself and Senator Martinez passed a bill, Senate Bill 630, about almost 2 years ago. So this is a bill to look at, well, maybe to make CPS more accountable and transparent when it comes to school actions. So right now we're still negotiating. We have asked them to give us a 10-year master plan, and we're negotiating right now with them. They want to extend the deadline, and we're saying that we need some other services before we, agree to a bill that they want me to carry in the legislature. I think both of us are going to carry it. She's going to carry it in the Senate. I'm going to carry it in the House. So we also met with the mayor and the CEO, and so we're right now in negotiations to put some language. We want some wraparound services anytime they take school actions. We know that children have other needs, so we're going to start talking to them. We're negotiating. We have some language that they're going to be seeing today. As soon as I leave from here, I have to go to my office and communicate with them because we want to add. We have some needs too when it comes to education in our communities. Our communities are changing, and when no one wanted to live there and we stuck through it, now that it's gentrifying, now we call it segregation due to gentrification. Now we're being pushed out back and forth, a lot of back and forth, because we're not really getting what we're looking for. And they've had this is their fourth CEO since we established, just working with them and introducing some of these bills. But anyway, we're moving along, and now they, want to create another committee, but we're going to stick with what we're doing, and they can do whatever they're doing, and we'll see how we just open up those lines because we need change. But when it comes to bilingual education and dollars, that's one of our priorities, without a doubt. Every in this table right here, that's their priority. Bilingual education is Latinos. Of course, those are the things that we support. Immigration bills, anything to do with bilingual education, that is our priority. So please, anytime you want to call us up and say this is one of the bills that we want you to keep an eye out for, we'll do it. Thank you.
Can I just add, in terms of bilingual education, I just want to let you know, this last session there was an attempt to try to cut back on bilingual education. But due to the fact, and keep this in mind, that bilingual education is a federal mandate. So they can't do away with bilingual program, but they can cut. So the work that had to be, that we had to do is we really need to increase bilingual funding. That is what we need to do. Why? Because of the growing population, and it just makes sense. So what the success in this was that at least to maintain level funding this past year for bilingual programming. But that, I just want to assure you that the bilingual program is not going to go away due to the fact that it is a federal mandate.
Great. So now we're going to move on employment. And this question that I received from the audience really reminds me of a story I did a few years ago where we see the census says that 16% Illinois, roughly, it's Latino, but it's not reflected in the. So somebody wrote, what direct action are our Latino legislators taking in order for the state Latino employment numbers to increase, especially at our universities?
Can you repeat the question again? I'm sorry.
what direct action are Latino legislators taking in order for the state Latino employment numbers to increase, especially at our universities? So the number of employers
Okay.
that work for the state.
That's a big issue. That's a big issue, and I think you don't even have to work at the university to know that. As Latinos, we know there's disparities across the board. Yes.
Every state department.
Yes.
Every state department.
Yes, in every state department, and we've had hearings. We need to continue to have those hearings, but you know, we juggle every issue, every single issue. So again, we've been talking. We mentioned, and you know, even talked to Miguel del Valle when I had a meeting with him about 2 days ago, and we talked about it's time to do those hearings again. Go to universities. So yes, we have to continue to talk about that and have some dialogue. You know, I think we talk about it till we're blue in the face. I think that we really have to take an action and, you know, just move forward on it. We need to sit down and talk about that as soon as we get back to Springfield, start setting up some dates where we're going to engage the community and the schools and the employees. You know what happens? I'll tell you exactly what happened. I worked with some of the employees at the universities. They'll come and meet with us in our office and they'll tell us whatever they want to tell us. But when we have the hearings, nobody's saying anything. So what can we do? You know, unless you speak out and come before us and tell us what the issue is, I think that's the only way we're going to address it. Meet with us and ask us to help you or help change something. But when we're trying to make the change and you're not there, it's really hard because it's only us asking and they're saying, well, who said it? And, you know, but we say, look at your numbers. But anybody can exaggerate the numbers because you know what? They give us information. It doesn't mean that they're accurate. And I think you know that. Because a lot of times, a lot of this information is manipulated, in my opinion, because we've gone and we've called and then we do the research. So again, we need to come together and continue to work on that. I know we need to do better and at every area.
Okay, we only have less than 10 minutes
well,
now.
yeah, 30 seconds on this because we need to point out a mechanism that is working, and that is, that we've been able this last year to work with, and I know Representative Soto is aware of this too, we worked with the Latino Policy Forum, and working with the organization, I know some of you are here, and Martin Torres, who also sat down with big numbers, as we have to deal with Governor Quinn's administration. So unless they are sensitive to the numbers as the policy forum has taken this budget and shown that we are 16%, yes, we get 6% in actual funds, but in terms of employment, Tony Munoz, Senator Munoz, and myself do have a gate through the Executive Appointments Committee, and we're trying to see more Latinos come through that, and we've been asking the governor to put the pressure on them, because we run the committee that if he appoints you, we have to confirm you in the Senate. So that mechanism, but I have to give credit to the Latino Policy Forum, who's really laid out a grid. And in this year's meeting with Jerry Sturmer, unless you show him the numbers, we didn't have not one Latino member on the community college board, yet we're filled all the city colleges. Well, because of my thing, showing him that number from the Latino Family Policy Commission, they're now going to name a Latino to the community college board. So if we're going in that track, and I hope that we're going to engage with them more in terms of all of the fields. They have a very good understanding, and they're a better think tank, keeping in mind, like the legislators say, we're busy in the trenches. The foundation, as you know, sponsored this event. We moderated it. They're the ones doing all the fundraising for us, and we're doing the nitty-gritty work in the General Assembly. Latino Family Forum, Policy Forum, has become that think tank and is helping us in many fronts, and we should also be very thankful for them helping us put together Latino Family Commission. And Lila Suleiman's in the audience, and Dr. Suleiman, we want to thank her for that.
That was a question to make sure Latinos, are included in the state government, but I also have a question about what incentives do you have to support small Latino businesses?
Anybody take a stab at that?
We had the panel that I was moderator of this morning. We had David Bott from DCEO that was in the panel. He talked about money that comes from small business, that came from the state a little bit, sometimes the federal grants that are given to the state, and we are able to do it that way. But we can definitely always reach out to the small business SBA loans. That's really big. And if you're also a veteran-owned company, you even get more incentives for that. So keep that in mind. What you want to stress, what we need to stress as the caucus to DCEO, Governor's Office, is to make sure that there's money out there. The banking industry right now doesn't want to give money out. I don't have to tell you that, especially if you're a business owner. Right now it's hard to get money. Years ago, or the last couple of years, you probably had a $500,000, $300,000 line of credit. Well, nowadays you don't have a line of credit. And when you do business with the state, the ones that were able to do the business with the state, it's unfortunate because a lot of them are not getting paid right now. And that's the problem that we're seeing. So please, you need to be careful when you do some work. You've got to make sure you're able to pay your payroll. So, but if you'd like, we can work with the caucus to set up a committee just to specifically do that for the minority businesses.
All right, we don't have much time now. I just want to see if we can just squeeze a last question here. And it's all on healthcare. How will the Illinois Insurance Exchange that is part of the Obamacare help the Latino communities?
Today in my health committee, I moderated the health session here today, as I do every year, as I chair public health in the Senate. Thank God they eliminated the first one around. Jim for the Campaign for Better Health Care, who helped put together the whole model of affordable health care, explained it in terms of it has to be diverse. A health care exchange is every state has to have one. It is to help be a turnstile that's going to bring folks into the new plan of the health care law of 2014, okay, in a nutshell. And what they had first in Illinois, no one in this, it didn't look like anyone in this room. It was very elite. We were surprised that those of us who sit on commissions like the Human Services Commission and a variety of other ones that we Exchange Commission, and there's people on this panel that will be on that commission because they need to be represented. And that's the way it's going to help Latinos, because we have seen in state government since the times of Senator Martinez, who was leading in front of you all, under George Ryan, an employment movement, and even then they signed a document and said, executive order, we got to hire Latinos. It was a piece of paper. Nothing happened. So we know that we have to stay diligent, and that the only way we're going to do that is by making sure that we can recommend people like the Dr. Munoz's, all of the great PhDs and medical folks we have in our communities, and make sure that we have community-based people, and that we have a legislative oversight of fiscalización, if you will, of that process. And I'm looking forward to be an intricate player in making sure that we are highly represented, and I would have the least credentials to be on that compared to some of the people who we met today on a health exchange in my setting this morning, for those of you who were there. We have to do that, in my estimation.
Well, thank you very much. And with that note, we conclude this session. Thank you all for participating. Thank you very much for your questions. Thank you for the panelists for being here. And I just want to give a little note here. Lieutenant Governor Sheila Simon, she's present right here. Everybody's going to celebrate this 10th anniversary. So enjoy yourself, and thank you very much all for being here.
You can take a quick one right here, guys.